I want to welcome you to Improving Productivity with Automated Time and Attendance, presented by NetTime Solutions. For your convenience, this webinar will be recorded and emailed to all registrants, and we'll also have it available online. My name is Jennifer Spencer. I'm the Director of Marketing here at NetTime Solutions, and I'm joined by Behan Sadeh, who is our founder and CEO here at NetTime Solutions. So just a brief overview of what we're going to cover. And today we'll first take a look at why improving productivity matters when it comes to time and attendance. And then next we'll explore a client case study in which a company transitioned from a manual payroll process to an automated time and attendance system, and what kind of impact that transition had on their company. We'll then take a closer look at the specific features that exist within an automated time and attendance system that will make your employees more productive. And then finally, we'll close with a Q&A session. So I'd like to start by having you ask yourself, what's your competitive edge? For businesses to truly have a competitive edge, they need both visibility into and efficient management of their workforce. So, for example, if you manage a group of people, then you've probably thought, my employees seem busy all day long, but I'm really not sure what they're specifically working on. Or, I'm not sure if my team has the capacity to take on yet another project. Now, I formerly managed a large multi-city department where I had 50% of my staff working out of a satellite office, and I frequently struggled with the time management aspect of my department. While we had weekly department meetings and regular check-ins where the team could provide feedback on what's happening in the weeks and months ahead, I was really unable to see precisely where my team was spending their time. And this information would have been extremely valuable in managing the team's workload as it related to some of our long-range initiatives and short-term objectives. So when we talk about true workforce data, what we really want to know is where can we glean insight into this workforce data, and how does time and attendance come into play? Now, in organizations that use automated time and attendance, 72% of the employees rate themselves as being highly engaged. These companies also experience an 11% increase in workforce capacity utilization. Meanwhile, when time and attendance solutions are integrated with payroll processing error rates drop by 30%, and time tracking errors decrease by 32%. In fact, the need to improve overall workforce productivity through better labor management has been cited as one of the top 2 business pressures in the U.S. last year. Why? Well, to start, unplanned absences themselves cause an 11% decrease in productivity, and fraudulent time clock usage can cost businesses up to 5% of their gross payroll every year. And according to a human capital management trend study from AberdeenGroup, HR and IT departments cite time spent on tactical activities as the #1 barrier to being a more strategic partner to the business. So how do traditional time and attendance procedures, such as those involving paper timesheets and punch cards, affect your organization's operational efficiency, HR effectiveness, employee engagement, and overall productivity? I mentioned my former role managing a large 2-city department, and we handled time and attendance in a very antiquated manner. All of my employees would hopefully fill out their paper timesheets that were appropriate for their type of employment, whether they were salaried or hourly, and they would then submit those timesheets to their respective supervisors. But as you've also likely experienced, people forget or projects get in the way, and supervisors are inevitably then chasing down those paper timesheets. They then had to be checked for errors, including calculating all time assignments, and all timesheets were signed before being submitted to me as the department director. Now, if this doesn't sound complicated enough, with our 2-city split, I had supervisors sending me timesheets via email, some via fax, and some via interoffice mail. And this is only the beginning of the process, but you can already begin to see how this traditional time and attendance procedure was affecting my productivity as a department director and impacting the organization's overall productivity and profitability. So now let's take a look at a case study of a regional transit company in the southern United States. Now, this company had roughly 200 employees made up of both hourly and salaried personnel. Now, prior to automating their time and attendance, their employees' hours were tracked in an Excel timesheet. Then supervisors manually checked their employees' coding to ensure that employees coded their hours to the correct projects, and then any overtime hours that were already served would be manually calculated during this checkpoint. The company's bi-weekly payroll process used to span 5 solid days, with 1 full day of inputting hours into their payroll system. 1 employee was dedicated solely to payroll for the company's 200 employees. The process was extremely interrupted as there was a great deal of back and forth between the payroll manager and the company supervisors. So, what happened after this transit company automated their time and attendance? Now, the company's payroll process takes half the amount of time it used to, and instead of 1 employee spending an entire workday inputting hours in the payroll system, all data is now exported in just 5 minutes. And where before supervisors and the payroll department experienced a lot of interrupted back and forth during the payroll process, now those supervisors are taking an active role by correcting errors and making adjustments as they occur, rather than a week and a half after the fact. And remember that employee who solely managed the company's payroll? That was her entire job. But now that the company has implemented automated time and attendance, she's been able to take on additional administrative duties with the time she's saved throughout her workday. And supervisors can now analyze payroll trends to make informed decisions for the future. Meanwhile, the company's HR and IT managers can focus on the company's strategic initiatives. So now I'm going to pass this over to Behan, who's going to look at some of the key features of an automated time and attendance system and really explain how it works to make the roles in your organization more productive.
Thank you everyone for taking some time out of your busy schedules to join us for this webinar. My name is Behan Sadeh. I am the CEO of NetTime Solutions. As Jennifer mentioned, I'm going to explain how automated time and attendance works and the steps you need to go through to implement one. I'm also going to go through some of the productivity tools that are available. I'm going to highlight scheduling, but I'm also going to talk about time off accruals. The first thing to understand is time attendance are not standalone systems. They should work with other applications within your enterprise. The most common setup is integration into HR and payroll applications. Typically, employee data is fed from the HR application into your time and attendance. This data would include data points like first name, last name, employee number, and so on. In addition, labor level information is transmitted like department and job access information. And also, we'd like to get their managers and any other important data to help automate the system. Next, after all the data is entered into the time and attendance system, the gross hours are transmitted to the payroll application in order to get the employees paid. This data typically consists of regular time, overtime, and any dollar amounts like bonuses and tips the employees have entered. Having these types of interfaces is critical because it reduces errors by eliminating the need for double entry. Also, as you can imagine, it reduces the time to process the payroll. Once you have selected a vendor for your time and attendance needs, the first step is to assess your rule sets within your organization. This includes any tribal knowledge, any tribal rules that you may have, but also includes any CBAs, collective bargaining agreements, or union rules. Once you've gathered all that information, you will then configure the setup in the system. This will be done in coordination with your implementation manager, so you don't have to worry about actually learning the system that well up front. So let's talk about some of the productivity rules. So after configuring the system, you will need to decide which productivity tools you will want to implement. Most of the systems out there are like Microsoft Word, where they have many features that are available, and you decide which features that you want to implement. One of the more popular tools is employee scheduling. There are a few keys to a successful rollout to employee scheduling. To me, one of the most important is simplicity, both in concept and usability. I've seen way too many systems where scheduling aspect was so complicated that the frontline managers decided not to use it. Instead, they went back to their trusted Excel sheet or pencil and paper. This will obviously reduce the productivity increase that you could potentially receive from an automated time and attendance system, because without schedules, we don't know about employee absences, we don't know anything about tardy trends, and we have no way of forecasting future labor costs. So we've created a simple, intuitive interface that allows managers to simply click and drag the employee schedules. If they like that schedules, they can simply copy it to another employee and copy it in the future. If they decide that their schedules are basically the same from week to week and only need minor adjustments, then they can create templates, and the system will actually generate that schedules for them. The key concept here is simplicity. We found that with this new intuitive interface, our adoption rate for employee management using the scheduler has increased tremendously. In addition to employee scheduling, there's a number of productivity tools like automated time off accruals. This is where the time and attendance system will track and calculate employees' time off like vacation, sick, and PTO. In addition, employee self-service, you can empower your employees to look up their own balance versus calling their manager every time they want to know whether or not they have enough time to take a vacation. We have also built in a workflow that allows employees to request a time off and then give the managers the insight to either approve or deny that request. And then they'll be able to see who else has already been approved and what their scheduling needs are. This is really helpful to keep your staffing levels at the appropriate rates during the holidays. Another decision point is how are your employees going to interact with the system? There are many options out in the marketplace. This includes electronic time clocks that allows employees to clock in and clock out and perform other functions like checking their schedule, requesting time off, reviewing their hours, and so on. Employees can also do this functionality from the website. We do have the ability to lock out a system so employees cannot clock in and clock out from home or their couch, so we have that ability. Or they also have an ability to use a standard telephone system to call into an 800 number and punch in and out. And one of the fastest growing methods is the ability for not only employees but managers to access their data via a mobile device like an iPhone or Android device. With these devices, employees can punch, request time, and managers can view employee status to see who's in, who's out, and managers can actually approve time off requests right from their phones. The last but most important step is to train and empower your employees. If your managers don't know how to use the functionality, then they will never be able to leverage the tools. So training is key to a proper return on investment. So at this point, I will return it back to Jennifer.
Thank you. Okay, our first question is, how long does it typically take to implement a system like this? Behan, you want to answer that?
Sure. Well, obviously, it depends pretty much on how many employees that you're going to be putting on the system. And typically, some of the drivers are going to be how many rule sets do you have, how complex are some of the local rules that you wanted to do. I mean, if it's a simple 40 hours per week, 8 hours per day type of thing, we're looking between 30 to 90 days. But then actually that could increase depending, again, how many locations and so on. But that should give you 30 to 90 days for business unit size of about 200 to 300 employees is what we would see out there.
Okay, our next question is, how much does it cost? So I'm going to pass this back over to Behan again.
Well, just like how long implementation takes, the models are different from each company to company, but this is typically how it works. Most SaaS providers, which is what NetTime Solution is, which is software as a service, provides the software, and it makes it available through the internet, and the customer would pay a monthly fee to use that. And that could differ depending on the functionality that you would want to use in the system. Now, there are some one-time fees like implementation. If you want to use time clocks, there's a one-time fee for that. And there's also rental models if you want to rent the time clocks. And then if you're using the IVR, there would be a per-minute fee on that.
Okay, we've got a question on contracts, about how long are your contracts. Actually, with NetTime Solutions, we operate on a month-to-month contract. So at any given time. A client could cancel that contract. In our experience, our clients we have a 95% customer retention rate. So once a customer gets acclimated to our system and they're using Stratus Time, they're staying on board and they're really enjoying that system. We've got one more question about the long-term ROI of using this kind of a system. Now, according to the American Payroll Association, when you transfer from a manual system to an automated system, you can plan to save between 6 to 8% of your total payroll expenses.
There's a question out there about API integration. And Stratus Time does have a full API set, and I'm going to get a little bit technical here. But basically, we have the ability to integrate using standard web services, JSON data exchange, or just pure XML. So what that allows you to do is to be able to feed data into Stratus Time, like employee information. You could actually push that into the system, so allowing you to leverage real-time data exchange, and also be able to pull out any payroll data, the gross hours from the system. Again, from the outside, you're able to integrate within Stratus Time seamlessly. We also have the ability to leverage SSO, which is single sign-on. So if you have an application that you already have your employees log into and don't want to have them re-log into Stratus Time, we have the ability for them to accept those credentials and log into the system without having to re-enter their credentials.
Well, thank you so much for joining NetTime Solutions for improving productivity with automated time and attendance. If you'd like to learn more about Stratus Time and see if it's the right automated system for your organization, you can give us a call at 1-800-561-6366, or you could visit us online at nettimesolutions.com to request a customized demonstration. Again, thank you for joining us, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.